paints, I don't use pure black in my work. And the kind of paint I'll be using is mostly silk vinyl. It functions a bit like acrylic paint, but it's a bit more affordable and better for covering large surfaces since it's also just a little more viscous. And so unlike with acrylics, as I sometimes have to do, I won't have to mix the paint with a bit of water before I apply it on the wall. To create a smooth transition between two colors, like the light blue of the sky and the even lighter blue towards the bottom part of the sky, there's a couple of ways to do that. I could either mix the two colors in equal proportions on a separate palette, then paint that in between the two colors so that the colors don't flow from A to C, but there's like a B color in between that makes it a bit more seamless. Or in some cases, as you'll see here, I can load the brush with a very little amount of one of the colors, A or C, then rub it along the border to make sure that that clear line that I had before is completely obscured. That way it will look like one color simply flows into another in an almost cloudy transition. So now the sky is done, and believe it or not, this has all taken just one day. This doesn't mean I'll finish the whole painting in 4 days, it's just that some parts are simpler than others and the sky usually isn't that much complex, at least compared to what I'm about to paint after this. The land section of this painting can be divided into three, namely the background, the middle ground and the foreground. The background is what's farthest away from us, so this will be the hills and the lakes in the distance. I'm going to paint this as one unit so that when the same color appears for the shadows or highlights in different parts of, say, the hills or the lake or the trees in the background, I can apply that color all at once across the entire background as opposed to mixing it afresh as I paint each section of the background part by part. The local colors will come first in the same way that I painted the sky before. And this will all have clear borders like a vector painting or a vector artwork. It's not easy to see this at the moment, but the colors are not very saturated in this section of the painting. Remember, the further away we go, the less vibrant these colors will appear. So all the hills are going to look grayish together with the trees and the lake. And this is difficult to gauge at the moment since the rest of the painting is white, but as you'll see when I paint the middle ground and the foreground afterwards, the colors of the features in these background sections are comparatively muted and not as vibrant as what will come after. Even though I haven't painted this part of the landscape in much detail, you can already kind of tell what these local colors imply. There's a hill in the background, another hill right in front of it, and finally there's a lake to the left, which is why we have the blue section. Since this part of the painting is so far away from us that it's going to be out of focus, the borders between these colors won't be as clear as they would be if the hills were right in front of us. And so I'm going to try and smoothen those borders by painting a neutral color in between. And the result of this, as you can see in some sections, is the transition between the two colors looks a bit more smoky. And this is what gives some sections of the painting that illusion of being blurred. A few details on those hills will also make them look a bit more realistic. For example, some parts will be dry, other parts will be bushy or more forested. And so the light brown streaks imply that these are the sections where we can see dry land far into the distance. I'll also do the same thing with the lake, since it also won't be just one local color in real life. So there's going to be parts that are bright or dark, depending on if the water is creating waves on the surface. And of course, the saturation will also vary from part to part, depending on which part is closer to us and which one is far away. On the forest, I'm going to paint something that looks like mist, which we saw when we were taking the photos earlier. And in addition to making the colors more saturated, I'm also showing more and more detail as we get closer and closer to the viewer. So even though you can't see individual trees in this bushy part of the middle ground, at least you can see the outline of the foliage at the top. And the shadows are also a bit clearer now than they were when I was painting the trees in the background. With the background done, now it's time to move on to the middle ground. And I hope it's visible by now.